Johnny Depp just broke his silence in the most explosive way possible, in a bombshell interview with the Sunday Times published yesterday. The Hollywood icon made shocking statements that are sending shockwaves through the entertainment industry and reigniting conversations about one of the most controversial trials in recent memory. For the first time since his high-profile legal victory against Amber Heard, Depp has opened up about what he calls his role as a crash test dummy for the #MeToo movement. These aren't just casual remarks from a celebrity promoting a film. These are calculated, raw, and deeply personal revelations from a man who says he was put through a public crucifixion and lived to tell the tale. The interview, conducted to promote his upcoming directorial effort, Modi, 3 Days on the Wing of Madness, quickly turned into something much more significant. Depp didn't hold back when reflecting on the accusations first leveled against him by Amber Heard in 2016, when she filed for divorce and claimed he had physically abused her throughout their marriage. "I was like a crash test dummy for #MeToo," Depp told the Sunday Times. "And I sponged it. Took it all in." This statement alone is already trending across social media platforms, with fans and critics alike dissecting every word. The metaphor is particularly striking, painting Depp as someone who absorbed the full impact of a cultural movement that was designed to protect victims, but, in his view, destroyed an innocent man. But perhaps even more shocking than his #MeToo comments were his reflections on falling in love with Amber Heard in the first place. When asked about their relationship, Depp called himself a sucker for falling in love with the actress. He described how past relationships had shaped his approach to love, saying that when you try to love and help someone, sometimes that malaise, that perturbance in their eyes, manifests itself in destructive ways. The interview reveals a man who is clearly still processing the trauma of what he endured. Depp spoke about the moment he decided to take his case to court, knowing full well what it would cost him personally. "Look, it had gone far enough," he explained. "I knew I'd have to semi-eviscerate myself. Everyone was saying, it'll go away. But I can't trust that. What will go away? The fiction pawned around the globe. No, it won't." This is where Depp's story becomes particularly compelling. He made the conscious decision to sacrifice his privacy and dignity in a public trial, because he believed the alternative was worse. "If I don't try to represent the truth, it will be like I've actually committed the acts I am accused of, and my kids will have to live with it. Their kids that I've met in hospitals," the reference to his children, Lily Rose and Jack, whom he shares with ex-partner Vanessa Paradis, adds another layer to his motivation. This wasn't just about clearing his name for his own sake. This was about protecting his legacy for future generations and ensuring that the children he meets during his hospital visits don't see him as a monster. Depp's confidence going into the Virginia trial was remarkable. "So, the night before the trial in Virginia, I didn't feel nervous," he revealed. "If you don't have to memorize lines, if you're just speaking the truth, roll the dice." This statement perfectly encapsulates Depp's mindset at the time. For someone who had spent decades playing characters, the trial offered him the opportunity to simply be himself and tell his truth. The trial, which took place in 2022, became a global phenomenon. It was live-streamed on YouTube and turned into what many described as a real-life soap opera. The jury ultimately ruled that Heard had defamed Depp in her Washington Post op-ed, where she described herself as a figure representing domestic abuse without naming Depp directly. The victory wasn't just legal, it was cultural, with public opinion shifting dramatically in Depp's favor during the proceedings. But the cost was enormous. Depp survived what he calls all the hit pieces, the bullshit that accompanied the trial. He acknowledges that none of this was going to be easy, but he says he didn't care about the personal cost because the stakes were too high. Perhaps most intriguingly, Depp revealed that the entire ordeal showed him who his real friends were. He spoke about 3 people in particular who betrayed him during his darkest hour, though he declined to name them publicly. "I'll tell you what hurts," he said. "There are people, and I'm thinking of 3, who did me dirty. Those people were at my kids' parties. Throwing them in the air, this betrayal cuts particularly deep because these weren't just professional colleagues or casual acquaintances. These were people who had been welcomed into his family, who had played with his children, who had been part of his inner circle. The fact that they abandoned him when he needed support most clearly still stings." However, Depp also used the crisis as a way to identify genuine loyalty. "As weird as I am, certain things can be trusted," he explained. "And my loyalty is the last thing anybody could question. I was with one agent for 30 years, but she spoke in court about how difficult I was. Even his longtime representation turned against him when the pressure mounted." The interview also touches on his current state of mind and his approach to fame. Despite his massive success over the decades, Depp insists he never sought the spotlight. He moved from Florida to Los Angeles in the early 1980s with dreams of becoming a rock star, not a movie star. "I don't think I ever had any attachment to the success or the fame or any of that," he said. Today, Depp says he spends much of his time watching weird shit on YouTube. A surprisingly relatable confession from one of the world's most famous actors. This glimpse into his daily life suggests a man who has found peace in simplicity after years of chaos. The timing of this interview is particularly significant. While promoting Modi, Depp is also preparing for his return to mainstream Hollywood with Day Drinker, an action comedy where he'll star opposite Penelope Cruz. The film, set for release in 2026, represents his official comeback to major studio filmmaking after being effectively blacklisted following Heard's initial accusations. But Depp seems philosophical about his career trajectory. When reflecting on everything he's been through, he maintains that he has no regrets about anything. His reasoning is simple but profound. Because, truly, what can we do about last week's dinner? Not a fucking thing. This zen-like acceptance of his past suggests a man who has made peace with his journey, however painful it may have been. The Johnny Depp, speaking to the Sunday Times, isn't the same person who was accused of domestic violence in 2016. Nor is he the man who sat in a Virginia courtroom defending his reputation in 2022. He's someone who has been through the fire and emerged with a different perspective on life, fame, and human nature. The interview has already generated massive discussion online, with supporters praising his honesty and critics questioning his characterization of events. But regardless of where you stand on the Depp-Heard saga, this interview represents a significant moment in celebrity culture. It's rare for a major star to speak so candidly about their darkest period, and even rarer for them to frame it in terms of larger cultural movements. As Depp continues his slow return to the mainstream, these comments will undoubtedly follow him. Whether they help or hurt his comeback remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: Johnny Depp is no longer interested in staying silent about his experience as what he calls a crash test dummy for #MeToo.